I had a match on Tinder in 12 days. This is House Cat MMA. Today I'm going over top 5 worst fighters to ever win a belt. Number 1 being Maurice Smith. Now, Maurice Smith beat Mark Coleman for the title, making him the second ever UFC heavyweight champion. Now, he is number 1 because he is the only fighter in UFC history to win a belt with a losing record. He was 5-7 going into the fight against Mark Coleman, making him 6-7 after he beat him, and he did defend the title once against Tank Abbott, which Tank Abbott is the MMA GOAT. That was a fluke. It was a hilarious fight because he TKO'd Tank Abbott with leg kicks like 8 minutes in, back when they did the 15-minute round. And before that, Tank Abbott pretty much wallered him for 5-6, maybe probably 5 or 6 minutes. And once Big John McCarthy stood him up, you could just tell that Tank was like, yeah, I'm done. That was really how Tank Abbott lost most of his fights. He wasn't all that skilled, but he was just so strong. And back then, guys had a hard time dealing with it. But once he got tired, he could deal with it. Anyway, but yeah, Maurice Smith, number 1. He did have 2 big wins. He had a big win against Mark Coleman. That's a pretty big win. And he did, in fact, beat Marco Ruas twice. But yeah, number 1 on worst fighters to ever win a title. Number 2 being Carlos Newton. Carlos Newton dethroned Pat Miletich for the welterweight championship, which is not a small accomplishment, but he didn't really do much after that. He lost the title immediately to Matt Hughes in that classic thing where he had Matt Hughes in a triangle, and Matt Hughes had him up like this, and he slammed him on the ground, knocked him out. But after that, he got a win against Renzo Gracie, which that's a big name, but not necessarily a big win. I don't think Renzo Gracie was really all that good. He's mainly a good jiu-jitsu guy, not all that great at fighting. Number 3 being Matt Serra. And I love Matt Serra. I'm a fan of a lot of these guys on this list. I love Matt Serra. But he wasn't necessarily setting the world on fire before he dethroned GSP for the title. He had a big win against Eve Edwards, so that was his biggest win. Not to be confused with Eve Levine. But they did the Ultimate Fighter Season 4, the comeback, when they had a bunch of veteran fighters do the 8-man tournament, and whoever makes it to the... Yeah, they did that whole 8-man bracket, with your Chris Lytles, your Shoney Carters, your Matt Serras, your Pete Sells, your Scott Smiths, guys like that. And it was Chris Lytle and Matt Serra in the finals. Matt Serra beat Chris Lytle, and then he fought GSP for the title, because that was the thing. If he win the season, he fight GSP for the title. Knocked out GSP, but after he knocked out GSP, he hurt himself, I forget how. So they had Matt Hughes and GSP go in there and fight for an interim title. And then some months later, Matt Serra and GSP had themselves a rematch. And that is definitely the top 10 most hellacious beatings anybody ever gave anyone. That's one of the probably top 10 most hellacious beatings where somebody dethroned the champion with. And then after that, Serra went on to lose to Matt Hughes in a decent fight. And then he knocked out Frank Trigg, which was a decent accomplishment. And then he loses to Chris Lytle. And then he hasn't fought since. So he didn't really do much before or after winning the title, which puts him at number 3 on top 5 worst fighters to win the belt. Number 4, as bad as I almost hate to say it, Michael Bisping. Now, because Michael Bisping was always that guy that he's always going to be in the top 10. He's going to win. He's going to lose, but he's going to win more than he loses. And because you got to think, wins Ultimate Fighter Season 3, has a little undefeated run, loses to Rashad Evans, and then wins a couple straight, gets knocked out by Dan Henderson, beats Dennis Kang after that, loses to Vanderlei Silva, and it was just a lot of that. He would put together 4 fight win streaks. You know, he beat Talis Latis. That's a decent win. He beat Anderson Silva before Anderson Silva completely fell off, like right before. That was a decent win. He had a couple more decent wins, like against he beat Jason Mayhem Miller, and I don't care what anybody says, Jason Mayhem Miller was a damn good fighter. His out of the ring antics kind of took away some of the shine in the ring, but he got the title shot because he didn't win a title eliminator to get the title shot. It was the situation where Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold were going to do their little rematch. Chris Weidman hurt himself, and they threw Michael Bisping in there. And the thing was, a year and a half prior, what had happened was Luke Rockhold beat Michael Bisping pretty bad and got him with a mounted guillotine choke. So I went to that fight watching it thinking, oh God, this is gonna be bad. But Michael Bisping got himself a fluky little win against Luke Rockhold, and then for whatever reason they threw him 13th ranked Dan Henderson in there to kind of avenge his knockout loss. And I think Dan, it was a close one because Dan dropped him so many times. I think he won the fight on damage. And then he loses to GSP when GSP did his little comeback. And then he got knocked out by Kelvin Gastelum. So I think that puts him at number 4 on Worst Champions. Number 5, even though I'm kind of a fan, Jamal Hill. Now, you could put pretty much every guy on this list that took part in the whole thing of when Jones had his little hiatus to bulk up to fight at heavyweight, and so in between that and when Pereira took over, you could put Jan Blachowicz in there, you can put Glover Teixeira in there, you can put Jamal Hill in there. I decided to put Jamal Hill because the minute he started fighting top 5 guys, he started losing. He loses to Pereira, he loses to Khalil Roundtree, and he loses somebody else that slips my mind. He got the belt from Glover, and which I was actually kind of sad about. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to win his next fight. I don't think he has one scheduled right now, but I'm pretty sure he'll, once he fights guys outside the top 5, he'll start winning again. But he's a top 10 guy who is labeled former champion because he won the vacant belt. Yuri Prohaska. He loses to Pereira, then Yuri Prohaska, then Khalil Roundtree. All top 5 guys. I put him at number 6. I think he's the 6th best guy in the division. But this is the top 5 there. Too much for him. But yeah, that's my top 5 list of worst fighters to ever win the belt. Housecat MMA.